We live in anxious times. We have anxiety about the economy, the environment, our families. But if you drive an electric vehicle, you've got a special kind of anxiety that most drivers don't: range anxiety. Range anxiety is the fear that your EV is going to run out of juice before you reach your destination or a charger. Its main cause? The lack of dependable, fast charging stations. Now, some people argue that this fear is overrated. After all, drivers average about 40 miles a day, and every EV can go way longer than that between charges. But that doesn't matter for many car buyers, and that's why improving our charging infrastructure is one of the keys to the EV revolution and a greener planet. When cars first hit the road more than a century ago, there were no gas stations. Talk about range anxiety. Drivers had to go to groceries or hardware stores, buy fuel, take it home, and fill up there. Today, EVs are a little like cars were in those days. Most people fill them up at home. Of course, you don't need to go to a store for your fuel. You just plug in a 240-volt charger, go to bed, and by the time you wake up in the morning, voila, you've got a full tank. Battery. But what if you don't own a house? About 1 in 3 Americans live in apartments or condos or other multi-unit dwellings, and most of those buildings don't have 240-volt chargers just lying around. In order to see widespread EV adoption, we need governments, businesses, and nonprofits all to make charging a priority. Some states encourage developers to add chargers to new condos and apartment buildings, and a few have even required it. But in most of the country, if you don't live in a house, you probably don't have a home charger. So, one way to cut down on range anxiety is to further incentivize new and old apartments and condos to install chargers for their residents. But home charging is just part of the equation. To truly conquer range anxiety, drivers need to feel confident that they can fill their battery wherever they happen to be. There are about 50,000 public charging stations in the US and about 100,000 ports. Now, this doesn't include Tesla chargers, which can only be used by Tesla drivers. That may sound like a lot, but 90% of them take hours to charge. In fact, only about 6,000 of them can do it in less than an hour. The problem is, putting up a fast charging station can cost a lot of money. Installing the charger and then connecting it to the grid can cost $100,000. And you have to sell a lot of electric power to recoup that cost. That's why governments and utilities have begun offering incentives to offset those costs. One idea that's gained traction are so-called make-readies, in which states or utilities pay all the infrastructure costs. Then all the charging companies have to do is set up the chargers themselves. But it's not enough to just build more chargers. We need to make sure that they're equitably distributed. Right now, only about 10% of houses in the US are within a quarter mile of a public EV charging station. And those houses tend to be in wealthier neighborhoods. There's a racial aspect to this as well. One study found that if you live in a primarily black neighborhood in these cities, you're 20% less likely to have a public charging station nearby. But that could change soon. The federal government is paying $5 billion to ensure that public charging stations go up or near the highway system. Now, those stations could just go up on off-ramps, which would be great for drivers, but they would be even more effective if they were set up about a mile or so further from the highway, embedding them deeper in many underserved communities. That, combined with other committed funding, could make charging more accessible to everyone, regardless of where they live. It may take a bit of time, but by adding more chargers at home and on the road, we should be able to conquer our range anxiety for good. If only there were a plug-in solution for all our other anxieties.